This is Brent with Lykins Motorsports. This is a 427 side oiler block for our new 465 tunnel port build that I did a video on a few weeks ago when we put the heads together. This is the block. I'd say this thing probably has a lot of history to it. It's not been damaged in any aspect, but I could tell that it had been raced. This is a hydraulic block, but down inside, these were tapped for a set screw to block off the oil going to the lifters. So they were completely blocked off, not restricted. This one has given me a little bit of a fit. The cam tunnels on these things were not known for being straight. And every so often I get into a situation where the cam just won't go in. And I get a lot of emails from guys that are trying to put their cam in for the first time and they're just not going. It is generally not a cam bearing problem. It is generally not a cam problem. Lots of guys like to blame the cam manufacturer because they did something wrong, but it's generally just because the blocks are just they just weren't machined straight from the factory. And you will notice this on not only the cam tunnel, but the deck surfaces and pretty much everything else. I'll show you how I fix that here in a second, but block's been pressure tested. It's okay. Mr. Ray Shepard of Ray's Crack Repair, he is well known around the world for fixing heads and blocks and that sort of thing. He is top class in his craft. The block has been decked. It's been line honed with ARP fasteners, bored and honed with torque plates. It's actually didn't have to be bored. These are 4233 standard bore size. This is now a 4250 bore size. So yeah, I'll take back my statement. I was incorrect. Bored and honed with torque plates. They usually bore within 5 thousandths of finished bore size and then hone the rest of it. But just a nice piece and a good foundation for our tunnel port build. Let me get this thing flipped over and we'll go over a few more things. Okay, one way that you know that somebody from the 60s has had a hold of these blocks is they are absolutely hogged out in the main saddles. That absolutely makes my blood boil. It does nothing but serve for a good place for these blocks to crack. I've seen 427 factory blocks come in with cracks on both sides of this main oil feed in the main saddle, and that is a weak spot for FE blocks. So I understand that sometimes the bearings don't line up perfectly. All you have to do is just chamfer the top edge of this and make it intersect with the bearing, or you can choose to take a die grinder and work the bearing a little bit. Stuff like this, you can see how big this is next to my finger. There's no excuse for that. And it does nothing, and look how big this one is. So I generally, well, I don't really like using blocks like this, but this is going to be a little bit lower horsepower tunnel port build, probably between 500 and 550 horsepower. Low RPM, street engine. So I think it'll be okay. But just guys, don't do this nonsense, okay? You don't have to do it. You could literally put this block, build this engine, without touching anything on the block except for matching this hole in the oil pump, and restricting oil at the top end. I literally have put, I don't know how many engines together like that. You have guys that feel like they have to take a drill bit and run this down. This is a diagonal feed going from your oil filter adapter all the way down to this passage, which it intersects, it comes back the other way and goes up through the block. Drilling that out does nothing when this passage, there's a 90-degree turn right here. You cannot get to this corner where those two feeds intersect. You just can't get to it. So you do all this work of opening this hole up, and then you still have a bottleneck right here in the corner. So a lot of the engines that you see on my channel, including the 352 that I had, JJ, and the 445 that we did earlier in the year with the ported trick flow heads and everything, none of that was done. We barely blended the main saddles to meet the bearings. We touched this, and we restricted to the top end. That's all you have to do. I will step down off my soapbox now, but so the cam bearings gave me a big fit, and I literally had like a couple hours into fitting the cam bearings. So what you can do, let's talk about how we can how I can help you when you get into that situation. Sometimes you get the cam started, sometimes it gets to the very end and it's so tight that you can't move it. I like to start out with, let me show you, something like this. This is an old factory camshaft, and you notice that on the journals I have ground in basically a cutting edge. And what you can do is you can jam that cam in there, and you can twist it and turn it, and it will knock off any high spots or clearance the bearing for you. That generally will do a lot of the work. It will not do all of the work. You can follow that back up with a dingleberry hone, or a ball hone is what they call them. First off, I'll warn you, it does not make the bearings look good, but there's another way to fix that. But if you use a ball hone, you can clearance the bearing if you want to. You can also turn the journals down on the cam. So hold on a second, let me grab something and I'll be right back. So you can use a ball hone like this, and you can get in there, work it with a drill. Then you can come back with, they make these Scotch-Brite balls. You can chuck those up in a drill and run them through the cam bearings, and it'll make your cam bearings look like new. Just be very careful and use due diligence on cleaning and making sure that you get any of that stuff out of there. That's what jet washes are for, and that's what some elbow grease is for. But you've never really known frustration until you get a cam in that just won't go, or it won't turn once it gets in there. Let's see, what else can we talk about here? I got a rear cam plug in already. So what I was about to start doing when I turned the camera on was I was going to fit the timing cover and mask everything off, and then get a coat of paint. On the block, we're going to use some satin black for our tunnel port build. There's two worlds of or two ways of thinking on tunnel port color, and I think both the Ford blue and the black are well documented. I've seen pictures of complete tunnel port engines sitting at Holman Moody's shop with blue on those. And if you remember, tunnel port heads and tunnel port intakes were not available on any production FE engine. Instead, you went to your Ford parts counter back in 1967 or 1968, and bought those over the counter. I have heard people talk of buying tonal port long blocks and that sort of thing over the counter from Ford. One gentleman on the Epi Power forum told me that he bought his tonal port engine and it was black. So I think no matter which way you go, black or blue, I think you're going to be justified. So this one's going to be black. We're going to go with a gold iridized Maladon oil pan. We've got some newer Holman Moody valve covers, and of course the tonal port intake is going to be a natural aluminum color, and our carburetors are going to be that gold dichromate. So everything is going to look really good. I try to make my stuff look as good as well as it runs. This is going to be a pump gas hydraulic roller engine, and it's going to run hard. So we want it to look good and run hard both. So I'm going to get my timing cover on. We're going to get this masked off. We're going to get some color on it. I've showed you guys that process a million times, so the next time you'll see it, it'll be a nice satin black. All right, what do you think? I think it looks pretty good. Already got our head dowels on, and I'm just going to take a few minutes and get all of our pipe plugs in. Got two up here, one up here. We got all of these on our rib for our side oiler gallery. One in the distributor hole, and 3, 4 right there. So those are 1/4-inch pipe, and we've also got our water jacket plugs. It looks like once upon a time somebody had an issue here. This is now a 3/8. Probably had a plug that they couldn't get out, but we'll put a 3/8 plug in there. Teflon tape, or I'm sorry, Teflon paste on all of those, and we'll press on. Okay, pipe plugs are in. These that go inside the engine that you don't need to seal to the outside, you can just put motor oil on. Make sure you put something on it, because it could gall the threads if you don't. Got that one, got those two, got the one behind the distributor, got our front plug for our main gallery back there. Those guys, those 4 guys, and all those dudes. So I'm gonna roll it over now, and we'll look at side oilers have a oil pressure relief valve, and we'll take a look at that. Okay, so you can see this passage here leads to this. This is where your oil would dump after it bypasses. So your oil pressure would press on the relief spring and the valve, and once it gets to a certain point, it'll let it dump back to the oil pan. So we've got, I'll show you this in a second, 1/8-inch pipe plug here, because there's a vertical passage that connects these two, and I'll show you the relief valve. So Precision Oil Pumps offers this kit, brand new, all new parts. So you put the spring in first, then the valve goes in, and then your plug for the back. All right, we got our relief valve and plug and spring and everything in. You can see it there. Some guys take different approaches to this. You can actually block all this off if you wanted to. You can even drill and tap these holes and plug it in. Oops, I forgot to put that plug in. Or you can just use the relief valve. I've never had any issues with the relief pressure of this particular kit from Doug at Precision Oil Pumps. Works well with the high volume and B pumps. I'm going to get that plug in, and then I'm going to jab our custom camshaft in there. This is a custom ground hydraulic roller. Comp Cams did this one for me, specially formulated for a tunnel port head. They take a little bit different spec than a lot of your other FE engines, just because of how well the intake ports flow versus the exhaust, and how big the port is relative to how big of an engine you have pulling on it. But we're about 600 lift on this one, mid 240s somewhere on 50,000 duration with a healthy split. But let me get that plug in, then we'll slide this cam in. There we go. Spins nice and free. It should, after we spent so much work on working those cam bearings. All right, we'll get our cam thrust plate on and probably be wrapping it up. So hit Doug at Precision Oil Pumps up for his thrust plate bolts and his thrust plates. We got together, and I was tired of having to buy a bunch of thrust plates and then having them surface ground down because they're never the right thickness. So Doug started making these at, can't remember the exact spec. You'll probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking 157 or 158 on the thickness, but that'll give you enough clearance for your cam. And you'll probably get, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 thousandths cam thrust clearances, which is about what you need. Before, we were having to buy these new, and you would bolt everything up, but the cam would be locked up solid tight, and you'd have to address it. But different parts available now, and we'll get this thrust plate cleaned and bolted on. So yeah, I usually put some assembly lube on each side, the side that your cam will touch, and then the side that your timing set will touch. Got some blue Loctite. This one actually goes in the end of the passenger side lifter gallery. And this one goes in this guy right here. Behind that is your oil feed to your distributor gear. I torqued these at 55. Should have screwed that in. Wasn't paying attention. Okay, so we're checking main bearing clearances now. We're using Federal Mogul bearings, and I'm just checking the front journal for now. That's what I usually do. There's no use in getting everything torqued up and then find out that you're way off and have to go do something else. So we're at 2.7, 2.6 on this one. A little bit tighter on the other side. So what we'll do, I'm going to check the others. I'll check this number 5 first just to see if it repeats. We'll probably end up having to polish 2 or 3 thou, or 10th, not 2 or 3 thou, 2 or 3 tenths off the crank so we can dial in that clearance a little bit better. I'd like to see closer to 3. We'll see what we can come up with, but let me get these others checked and we'll go from there. All right, we got all of our main bearing clearances checked. I got a range of 2.5 to about 3 1/10 or 3 2/10, so we can adjust what we need to adjust with the polish and get all these dialed in to probably around 2.8 or 3 or something like that. That's where I like to be. But so that was a lot of work. We got a lot accomplished today, and everything's looking good. So pistons are on order from Race Tech, and I expect those to be in probably in another 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks maybe. But we'll bag this up and get our crank ready for balancing when the pistons come in, and our heads are assembled, and we can just start nailing her down once the pistons come in. Thanks you guys for sticking around and watching, and tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Hope you have a good Thanksgiving with your family. Later this week, towards the weekend, we're going to be assembling some CHI cylinder heads, and with some pack valve springs and some other goodies. So stay tuned for that. I'll put that video up. Those heads will be for our 464 cubic inch cleaver, the one with the sheet metal intake that's poking over there. So we're going to get a little bit more done on that, but that'll be an interesting video, so stay tuned for that. Hope you guys are doing okay, and I'll see you next time.